It's one husband and wife team giving thanks like no other this holiday.
They were given a rare second chance thanks to a perfect match. King 5's Tricia Manning-Smith explains.
Bob Oliver is among the most positive, self-sufficient guys you'll ever meet.
Last day.
He makes 3 trips a week to the dialysis center. He connects himself to the machine. Without it,
I'd be dead.
Bob knows all about taking care of people. He spent his life working as a firefighter and deputy fire chief.
Good morning, Monica.
He also teaches others leadership skills.
Great, thanks.
But Bob admits there was a time when his optimism cracked and despair set in. It was the day he was diagnosed with kidney failure.
To hear that news, I mean, my life was over.
I was in complete denial.
Hey, sweetie.
Bob and his wife Deb have been married 30 years, raised 4 kids. She too was rocked by the diagnosis.
It's like a brick on my chest because I just didn't know what it was going to entail. I didn't know how long he had. You know, it was almost like a death sentence to us.
And I was thinking, can she handle this? Is she going to want out of the relationships?
Hardly. Instead, Deb came up with an idea to save his life.
He's given me everything I wanted. I'm thinking, of course I'd give him my kidney.
And Bob realized there's so much about his wife he never knew.
I mean, I had to reassess everything in our relationship. How did it come to this? It's just remarkable. And actually, I fell in love with her even more. I mean, it's just a deeper love that somebody's willing to do that.
Deb turned out to be Bob's perfect match.
Ribs connected to the hips, heavier in the tail.
But there was work to be done.
Straight arms come up above the shoulders.
To get ready for the surgery, Deb worked out twice daily and lost nearly 20 pounds. She inspired Bob, too. He dropped 50 pounds.
Tomorrow morning, I give him a kidney.
First thing the next morning,
Hi, baby.
Hi, honey.
Bob is prepped for surgery. Deb is beside him in the next bed.
I am still ready to go through with this.
I'm going to get a blood sugar on you. I think it's pretty spectacular. They love each other so much. This is nothing that surprises me that she would do for him.
I love you guys. I'll see you in a little while.
The 2 surgeries at the University of Washington Medical Center will last all day.
I could try something like this.
First, doctors delicately harvest Deb's kidney.
Looks like a great kidney. It's a little bit more challenging in that there's 3 arteries, but... Now, do we just carry it over?
Doctors rush Deb's kidney from her operating room down the hall where Bob is in surgery.
Okay. So now we're taking the kidney out of ice time, starting right now. Rotate table away from me a little bit, please.
His arteries and veins are meticulously connected.
Scissors, please.
The kidney immediately begins working as it should, cleaning Bob's blood.
Tells you say happy kidney.
It turns out that husband and wives are very successful donor-recipient pairs. And part of it is because of the bond between the 2 of them, and they help take care of things post-transplant.
Bob and Deb are now closer than ever.
How much more intimate can you be when you're willing to share body parts?
One day after the surgeries,
How you doing, babe?
I'm doing good. A little warm. She walks.
Hi, hon.
Deb takes her first steps to recovery.
That was hard to do.
I know.
Deb has given her husband much more than a kidney.
And your kidney's working really good.
Their marriage also has renewed life.
And now I'm back in discovery, and discovering more about this woman and her other dimensions that I never knew, which is really exciting at 30 years. So it's like starting all over again.
In Seattle, Tricia Manning-Smith, King 5 News.
Bob and Deb Oliver are now planning a trip to celebrate the successful transplant, and they also intend to enjoy a second honeymoon.
This man is drifting here.
We might as well get those. So that was the first question. How did it feel for kidneys to fail, for when you find that out? Was it a physical thing, or?
Well, at first it was a very subtle thing. It was very, very, very subtle. It just showed up in the lab tests, and creatinine levels was increasing. And they were a little concerned about it every year for about 3 years there. They're concerned, and then it got to a higher level where they suggested maybe I should, this is my yearly physical on the job, and they suggested maybe I should see a nephrologist about it. So I went to see a nephrologist, and he had said that I had kidney disease. And then we started just simply working on that, and that was basically through medication, but there's no real symptoms in my body at all other than the results of lab tests that I had.
So no physical sensations? Or...
No, not until after we moved to Seattle, and went to the doctor up there for my physical, and that's when he actually said end-stage renal failure. Because I had renal stuff before I heard him, but he just casually said, you have end-stage renal failure and you're going to have to go on dialysis.
Yeah, like he was talking about the weather.
Yeah, he said that just like, good morning. And I was like, wait, back up. What did you just say? He said, you have end-stage renal failure and you're going to have to start dialysis. And immediately I start spinning. I mean, the sound went down. His voice was just moving. I just went inside my head, and it was the end of the world. He had just said a death sentence to me because everybody that I'd ever seen that had gone on dialysis was really in bad shape and poor health, and I never really seen anybody come out of it. So when he said that, that was like a death sentence to me. And like I said, he started discussing other things, but I couldn't hear anything he said other than end stage. And I just moved to Seattle, moved the whole family up there, and got a new job. And now it meant the end of that job. It meant the end of my life.
We thought.
I thought at that time. So it was probably the most devastating personal news that I ever received, because it was like you're going to die in a matter of time. And so I had to live with that and had to try to figure out what I'm going to say to Deb. And, we're just here in Seattle. What am I going to say to my boss? What am I going to say to other people? You know what I mean? Because I couldn't come to grips with what I was going to say to me yet. So I thought, that's a tough subject. So let me start thinking about these other people. And so that's what I was thinking about, what I was going to say. How do I say it?
So what about you, Deb? What happens when he comes home that day and says, this is what the doctor said?
Yeah, I didn't take it as hard as he did. I think once is because I had no idea what people were like on dialysis. I really wasn't familiar with dialysis at all. And through that process and being educated and going, they really started with us in Seattle, how they started at the UW. They started showing us about dialysis, what it would take, what are some of the precautions, just everything about it, and it didn't seem as harsh and so terminal at the time, how he was feeling.
Well, because I was able to adjust that, you know what I mean? Because I wasn't going to tell her like the doctor told me. So when I told her the story, it was padded and it was adjusted. And
it was so medical.
And she could watch me, and if I'm not freaking out, I knew that if I'm not freaking out, then she wouldn't freak out. So I had to put all that stuff in place in order to share that information with her.
Well, when you did go through that educational stuff that Deb was just talking about, did it make it easier for you?
No, it was. We just made it more real. I just wish that when I heard that news, I wish that I woke up the next morning, like many times when people have traumatic things. You just wish that it was a bad dream. That the doctor said something else. So that denial part of it. It was there.
I definitely went through a part of that also. Definitely went through a denial part. When I started, it was like the balance is, okay, we're finding out information about what it's going to take to be on dialysis, and the denial part, and it's a balancing. Like, okay, now what do I do with this information?
Then the doctor let me decide when I was going to go on dialysis. He said, because he said physically, the symptoms will drive you there. And I thought, well, that's cool. And being that I'm a Christian, I'm with the church, and the pastor was going through a terminal cancer.
Yeah.
So he was preaching healing. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll hold out for healing. I didn't know what healing looked like. But if God was going to heal me, I wanted to hold out before I started dialysis and give him a chance to do that part of it. Because I know he could heal me any part of the game, but I was hoping and praying that he could heal me before I have to start dialysis. So
Faith kept it pretty positive.
You said you were the doctor said you could decide that, but eventually symptoms would drive you there.
Well, I was staying really positive and everything else like that. And what I did is I started going to the sauna. And because I knew that the kidneys was shutting down and potassium, I thought I could sweat that. So that's what I would do just about every evening after work. I'd go there and I'd feel much better. And I don't know if you feel better after a sauna or not, but I would feel much better after that.
Trying to get the toxins out of his body, that was something that he did.
Yeah.
And he was really just drinking lots of water and being very conscious of some things. But what I noticed, some of the symptoms from him, is he would come home for lunch every day and he would start to fall asleep. And that's something I've never noticed about him, is he would fall asleep. So he was getting tired. And you can kind of tell in his walk, he just had no energy. I think that was one of the biggest symptoms I ever saw.
Yeah, it was. It was just kind of a slowing.
Subtle and slow.
It was, nothing really achy or anything like that, but just slow. It was, my feet began to feel like lead. They had lead in them, and it was just a slow process. And so yeah, when I come home for lunch, it was like if I just sit still, I could easily fall asleep. And I was finding that way, even in some meetings that I was in. Right, I'd be sitting in an important meeting, and there's no way I could stay awake. Just draw me there, and I'd wind up dipping out, and some people would see that, and that created a kind of embarrassing kind of a thing too. So, but eventually
it kind of broke down in steps, because when they realized he had to go on dialysis, they created this little fistula in his arm for dialysis, and it was a progress that we went through. And all along the way, he was so positive. He was always upbeat about it. And so it really made every step of the way, knowing, and again, faith was a huge part of it, but knowing every step that, this is going to be okay.
And not giving into it. I couldn't, I wasn't going to just give up to it. You know what I mean? I was going to stay positive, try to stay healthy as long as possible.
What sounds to me, a lot of that could have been, some of that was a facade on your part for her benefit.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well,
and the benefit of all those around you.
Yeah.
Our kids, everything.
Well, whatever it takes, you would draw from, sometimes I'd run out of it for me, so I'd draw it for Deb or even with the kids. You know what I mean? You could draw from strength from them. I can do it for you.
Right.
So that's how basically it was for me. I was doing it for even on that vacation. We were out on dune buggies and stuff with, the ATVs and stuff. And I remember getting stuck in there and I couldn't even move it. I had
so symptoms like
Bobby
that, just changing. But
well, that was kind of the next question. How did it affect your day-to-day life? Were there things that you didn't do anymore because of the renal failure?
Well, it affected my life because I didn't have the energy, so I didn't make all my stations during the day. I'd stayed in my office a little more, just being tired and just being able to use the energy to do that part, to keep the big wheel moving. But actually the visitation and all that kind of stuff, responding on calls, I very seldom responded on a call unless it was necessary. Just not having that energy and trying to conserve the energy. So
how about in the home life?
Before dialysis, well, we were just kind of like hanging out and doing normal things. We weren't really active people. I mean, like going cross-country skiing wasn't our thing anyway, but I just noticed that he was taking naps. But once dialysis started and he would be at work, he told his boss, they kind of all took that and, freaked out as much as they needed to, and then life just carried on. He would get off work around 3 o'clock, go to dialysis, come home at 11, and wake up the next morning like it's just another day. Although it was tough on him, much tougher going through dialysis for him at, some of the symptoms that would happen because of dialysis. He'll have to tell you about that.
Well, just the adjustment part of that. First, there was, I think after 3 times, I found I got tremendous amount of energy. It was like brand new life for me, because then my potassium and the phosphorus and stuff that was off balance, and your electric lights are completely off, and I mean, your body is completely like, just like it's wired wrong. Every once in a while you just get something that goes on and it just feels just different. But it's because it's metabolism, because it's your whole system. It's a shutdown, different than a headache, which is localized in my head hurts, but in your body. And so after having dialysis, that part was cleaned up. And it took me a while to balance that off. So like I said, after 3 times, I was receiving benefit, but I just had much more energy and I was feeling more like myself.
And how often were you having dialysis?
3 times a week, 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours. When they say 4.5 hours, they mean run time. 4.5. That's not the 45 minutes that it takes for you to get there, or the 45 minutes it takes for you to get home.
Yeah.
Because my insurance wouldn't let me go to the nearest dialysis center, so I had to drive into another town, which was 25
It cut in
miles
on
away.
our personal life huge. It was a huge part of activity. Like, no, we can't do that today. Oliver has dialysis. But you know how he said people look sick on dialysis? I would go to visit him during his hours, and there were people that looked sick. But I thank God for his positive attitude, because he made it, and people around him even commented, he made it like a playground. He really checked on everybody that was there. They looked forward to him coming. So his attitude and his outlook was everything, and it was always high. It was always high.
Yeah, I just realized I was in better shape than a lot of those people were in that chair. Before I could feel sorry for myself, I would just stay there and pray for people, because there was like 3 people that died in the chair next to me while I was doing dialysis. And I would just look at Jerry, and he turned like pale white, and I thought, hey, this guy is really sick. And then pretty soon they're over there working him, and then he doesn't show up anymore. So there were some really sick people.
That happened 3 times?
3 times he witnessed his death.
Well, somebody coded, yeah. They have a whole procedure for it. I mean, so they bring the curtain out and everything. So it's a common. I know,
but it seems like. But they were ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's a serious thing, but I think your attitude has everything to do with it, and that's for me, being considering being a donor, going through that process. It was just nothing hard on my part. If it was a couple hours of going through testing, maybe having to take a dye, or it was all worth it. There was no real decision. It was just, yes, by any means necessary, we're going to get him a kidney. And if I'm the one, thank God.
Did they start that? Did they put you on the donor list as soon as you're diagnosed?
As soon as you go on dialysis, they put you on the donors list. And because of my blood type O, they said I was going to be on the list at least 5 years before I get a hit because of the blood type.
And we had family members that said, hey, I'll give you a kidney, and friends that said, I'll give you a kidney. And they, at their various locations, because you don't have to be at the same doctor, you could be at different places. Some were in Phoenix while we were in Seattle, some were in San Diego. They were going through the procedure with their doctor. They just tell them, I'm looking for this opportunity to give a kidney. Can I go through these steps with you? And they will, and they'll get you through the initial testing. Well, his brothers found out in the testing that some of them found out they were diabetic, so they were not a match at that time. So, and I always thought it was going to be someone else, but I wanted to go through the process also. And there was 6 major tests that I had to go through. And each one, I had a nurse who was just like a little cheerleader for me. She said, oh, you did great. Let's see the next one. And each one, I was the candidate. And that was like, I was so excited that this was going to change his life. And it did. And it is. I mean, as he was saying earlier, the death sentence that was given to us, it was real for a little while. And then the healing started. And there's no death sentence whatsoever right now. I mean, we're traveling, we're living life. no, it'll be 3 years next month. And there's been no side effects, no setbacks. He'll take pills for the rest of his life, but hey, with a little water, they could taste good.
A little seasoning.
Yeah.
Well, contrast today with
3 years?
4 years
4 years ago, exactly.
What's the big difference?
I think the big difference is energy, just on the level of energy
And freedom.
And freedom without, because when we travel, we still travel anywhere. You have to set that dialysis thing up.
Yeah.
So when you go to Hawaii, you have to have that pre-set up, and they have to work, your appointments in there because they have regular customers in Hawaii. So and you're a visitor, so you're a visitor set, so they have to work you in. And so sometime your day is like, they'll say 9:15 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if I'm there a week. And then it might be another time on the other 2 days.
So life is possible to live outside of your home, your doctor's office. We travel. We went several places. He traveled on business. And through the medical help, and through the dialysis organization, they set him up for different places and cities to be and have his dialysis. They made it a priority for him.
Okay, so now let's get back to the transplant.
Oh, yeah.
Once you go through all the testing and they determine that you are a match and everything's a go, what happens then? How long is that process? What do you go through up to it? All that kind of stuff.
Well, this is how they started off, because I asked for a donor right away. I said, can I get somebody to do that, when they were giving me the fistula, right? Because like I said, I got this a year before they were anticipating dialysis, because this needs to be cured, right? So anyway, what was I?
The transplant. How did we find out? Well, I could answer that for you, because I was in Target when I got the phone call. And she said, Deb, this is Cammie at the UW. Where are you? And I said, I'm at Target. And she said, can you talk for a second? I said, yeah. And, when someone sets it up like that, you think, she said, you're a perfect match, and we have your surgery for September 2010. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It was so great. I had no reservation, because I knew that it was going to go smooth. It was either going to go smooth or not going to go smooth.
Well, true. What do you do to prepare for the surgery?
Well, at that time I was working in a position where that wasn't an issue for me. Preparation was making sure I had someone to take care of us after the surgery, having some friends and family come, and it went smooth. I mean, our surgery was actually on the news, the local news, the Seattle news, because who would have thought I'd be a match for this man, But preparation was all with the knowledge of when we're better, things are going to just be a smooth sailing operation, and you just have to get to that point. For me, as the donor, there was about 2 weeks of a lot of uncomfortableness, gas pains and slow movement, but the advice that they gave me and what the doctors had said is keep moving, keep walking. Walking is really important, and just realize it'll take about 2 weeks for everybody, and then I have not felt anything from that since. I do watch my ibuprofen, because I do take care of my one kidney.
Yeah, that was going to be a question. Anything you do differently, or?
Well, it was good. That whole donor thing was different, because Deb was going to be the caretaker, so she was not even considered as a donor for a while. And because of the University of Washington actually pays for it, and I'm not really sure, I'm embarrassed to say I'm not really sure what exactly fund they have, but they pay for that, and it costs about $10,000 for each person to go through the complete test. So the test itself is a real slow process to give you a chance to back out. Because I had friends that they do the class and they tell you about it, and so I invited friends over and
who said they were interested
in being donors. And the first 2 people that went to the meeting both decided not to. And it was kind of funny because they started missing in my life, like not answering phone calls or whatever. And I actually had to go get them and tell them, hey man, I know this is a big, huge decision and it's okay for you. I mean, I'm going to love you anyway. But they were started like not avoiding me kind of a thing because they had decided not to give it, that it was something scared them in the process. Right?
I had a different at stakeness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about recovery? How long did the recovery take? I know you said 2 weeks before you were feeling things, but what about for you, Bob? What about how long a recovery process was it?
And your medication?
Well, one of the toughest parts was set the regimentation for the meds. Because coming from no meds in my life to 24 meds, just trying to figure out when to take those, and because some complicate things you can't take because it give you upset stomach. Different reactions. Some are every 12 hours, some are 4 hours. So it's some with food, some without food. So making that was the biggest thing. And but basically, when we came back from the hospital, because we were both convalescing, it was kind of cool because we had somebody to take care of us there. You know, they were bringing her soup like me soup, and so we were both sick people, and somebody was taking care of us, and that was kind of cool.
But we weren't sick. It wasn't a sickness. It was just recovering from a surgery.
It was basically holding your belly.
Yeah, when you laugh.
Yeah, that's all. But, you know, there was no, I wasn't sick. Matter of fact, right after the surgery, I got up out of my bed with my IV pole, and I went and found Deb, because I wanted to just see how she was doing, because she was gone an hour before they took me in, and so I never knew whatever happened to Deb. And when I woke up at 5:30 in the evening, of course surgery was over, they sent me up to the room, but they said Deb's in another room, but I still hadn't visually saw her, so I wanted to go and see her. So the next day I was able to walk to her room with all the poles and
now,
IVs.
was there a reason that they had you in separate rooms like that, or?
In case I died. No.
No, actually, it's a different kind of
recovery.
Recovery. So,
he had a lot more going on, but I felt worse.
Yeah, because I guess she was healthy at the beginning, so her mindset wasn't. And I don't know why, but she felt a lot worse, and I just felt good.
I felt like a truck hit me. That's all. I was sore, but yeah. For me, I didn't have to take any medication after the surgery, none. And he continues to take medication. A lot of the initial medication has weaned. He's so good about taking his medication, and that is what keeps me in a positive way about what he's dealing with and the disease, because he does take really good care of himself. So that is like, check, he's doing it. So that helps in both of our healing, that he's taking care of himself and I'm taking care of myself.
Well, that's great. It's a terrific story.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to toss in there?
I think anybody that's considering, well, organ donation, of course, and then if you are someone that is facing dialysis, it seems huge at first, huge. And then life kind of becomes a routine, and this is your routine to keep you healthy. One thing also to know is that there are so many sources that help people out because it is a financial, it's definitely a financial problem when you first get into it. But Medicare steps up, and they have paid for 3 years. They take you on and have paid all of this.
For meds and dialysis.
For meds and dialysis for both of us. So there's people out there to support you, and you're not alone, you know.
Well, what happens at the end of 3 years with Medicare?
Well, we're almost there, and we'll find out. No, I think I know, is our insurance now will continue, but our portion of, you know, that 80-20 or something, we'll pay more in prescription. prices.
Because the medications are lifetime.
Lifetime
Yeah.
medications, yeah.
There's some that's lifetime. Yeah. The dosage may vary, but it's a lifetime deal.
They change the dosage?
Yeah, they monitor my blood, and based on the tacrolimus level, my creatinine level, and there's an optimum level that I reach, and sometimes I can go underneath that or above that. But the part about my kidney is the kidney that Deb gave me is that it was a perfect match, and there's 5 or 6 criterion little levels, and she matched all the levels, and so there's no threat of rejection. I've never gone into rejection on the kidney, so I have to take those meds as precautionary. So they're minimum amount of meds that you take, and prednisone, the things that you take to prevent it from popping out of there. It's just not there because it's such a close match. As a matter of fact, the University of Washington said it was the best functioning transplanted kidney that they had ever seen, or that doctor had ever seen.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
It is.
that's amazing. And like I said, there's nothing in a marriage vows that says you have to give a body part. So I thought it was amazing that she decided that she wanted to give me a body part. At that time I couldn't really appreciate what that would really mean in regards to lifestyle and everything. But having received that kidney, having been on that side of it, having a dysfunctional end-stage kidney, and now having one dysfunctional, and having that comparison, there is none. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. Actually, life is better. With that appreciation and that gratitude, it just casts my life, the rest of my life, in a completely different light.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Hope that helps.
Enjoy this beautiful day.
Thank
Yeah.
you.